Zack Rosenblatt, Jets writer for The Athletic, co-host of the Can't Wait podcast. Zach, this is probably, I know you've been covering the team for a while. Tell me, how fun is it this year? All of these storylines, I can just tell you're having so much fun covering these Jets.
Yeah, you know, I would say covering the Jets, there's always weird stuff that happens, but usually it's not the kind of stuff that gets the attention of everybody in the country. It's more just like a local thing. And now you have Aaron Rodgers here, and you have people talking smack about the Jets because they built up their roster and they got Rodgers, and they're talking about the Super Bowl. So I guess this all comes with it, and it's definitely been fun because, you know, there's a lot more people looking at my stuff selfishly. So.
See, look at that. Everybody, look, Zack Rosenblatt is a very popular guy out here in the streets of the NFL universe. But, Zach, I guess let's start here. Obviously, the attention now on this football team because of what Aaron Rodgers has brung with his status as a quarterback in the National Football League. How has this changed Jets camp compared to where it was last year, not knowing with the quarterback situation and Zach Wilson, but now having a solidified guy in Rodgers? How has it changed sort of the temperature of training camp?
You know, there definitely is a different vibe around here. It is very interesting to me to kind of to Sean Payton's point to a degree. You know, this team is talking about the Super Bowl. Like, they're not shying away from talking about it. And, you know, the energy is different. You know, the attention on this team is, you know, every single practice, what we're talking about, what we're writing about, people are looking at it because you have a team that just traded all they did for Aaron Rodgers. He's the most famous or infamous quarterback that, you know, the league has maybe ever seen, and he's considered one of the best quarterbacks ever play the position, and they haven't had very good quarterbacks on this team in a long time. So you're seeing the difference in terms of just having him there, what he's doing for the rest of the roster, pulling guys aside, going into the other position meeting rooms. And so you feel a different vibe, you feel a different level of energy. And in New York, you know, usually the Giants are the priority. They're the ones getting the headline on the back page of the New York Post and the Daily News. But it's turned into the Jets, it's turned into Aaron Rodgers, and I've never seen it like that here before.
You know, Zach, kind of explain for myself especially, but also the listeners out there, when everyone hears that Aaron Rodgers had $100 million left on the contract, and he rips the contract up, and he takes a $25 million pay cut to make sure that the Jets are able to go out and get players and they're able to go out and be a team for the future, and kind of solidifies what he's been saying is that this isn't just a one-year deal for him. This is a guy who wants to be here for multiple years. What is this contract really? Is it a restructure? Is it regrouping? Is this for the future? What was this new restructuring of the $100 million with Aaron Rodgers?
Honestly, I'm not sure there's ever been a contract redo like this one. He pretty much gave back $35 million to the Jets, guaranteed money. And so his contract is technically a 2-year deal for $75, but what they did is they spread it out over 5 years so they can spread the cap it out, you know, give them a bonus now, and then you're able to spread that out over the 5 years. So it gave them cap space next year, which they didn't have. I think he was set to have like a $100 million cap hit. And
right.
I mean, you just don't see guys giving up over $30 million of their money. Like, you could say whatever you want about Aaron Rodgers, but I think that really does say a lot about what he thinks about this team. And I think that does kind of cement, you know, the idea that he wants to be here for more than 1 year. He's referred a few times when he's talked about it, like, you know, who knows what's going to happen with my health and who knows what will happen this season. But it's pretty clear his intention is to play at least 2 seasons.
So basically the Jets are all in for this year, and they're able to do something again come next year. And I think a lot of it is some of the pieces that they have. You know, obviously the wide receiver, Garrett Wilson, we all know that, you know, he'll get Breece Hall back. And then it seems to be there was a visitor in Jets camp today in Dalvin Cook. What are you hearing about the Jets possibly acquiring Dalvin Cook?
Yeah, I believe his visit will technically be Sunday. He's flying in today. I think he's going to be on Good Morning Football tomorrow, and then he'll have his visit on Sunday. I think a lot of that is that two sides getting to know each other. They want to check on Dalvin's medicals, but I would say there's definitely mutual interest, and I think the fact that this is happening immediately after the Aaron Rodgers contract restructure, I don't think that's not insignificant. You know, they believe Breece Hall is going to be ready for Week 1. He hasn't been activated and practicing yet, but you know, this team's all in on winning right now. A guy coming off an ACL like Breece, he probably won't be the same level of guy that you saw last year until the season is like, you know, halfway through the season or something like that, because that's just the way the ACL things work with a running back. So having a guy like Dalvin who you can lean on for the first half of the season, I think that's very appealing, especially because he can bring something to the passing game, add another weapon. And, yeah, I mean, this team needs to score points. Their biggest issue last year was the offense, and the defense is very good. And if you can bring in another weapon for Aaron Rodgers, I don't think that's a bad thing.
Jets writer for The Athletic, Zack Rosenblatt. Follow him on Twitter at Zack Blatt. How's our guy, Mr. Wilson, doing? We don't talk about the backup quarterback too often, right? Because last year you think about him coming into the season and everybody was all about did the Jets do it right, Zach Wilson. He's got a big year to prove, and now he sits back, and I'm just wondering, how is Zach Wilson right now, Zach?
Yeah, I think the best thing possible for him beyond, Aaron Rodgers, who he said was his hero before Rodgers ever came here. I think the best thing for him is the lack of attention on him, like you just said. Like, you don't really hear about the backup quarterback as much, and There's not really pressure on him going into the season. And you saw last year, as things got worse, his confidence got worse and worse, and he got to a point where he was a shell of himself, and he wasn't able to go out there and really function as a quarterback of any level. So I think this is all a reboot for him. He's in his third year of his career. It's kind of late for that to start, but the Jets still do believe in his talent. I think he's shown some flashes of improvement. Some of the things he was doing last year that were a problem, like working through his reads, or throwing the ball to a place where only his receiver can get it, and just like small things, he's shown some signs of improvement. I think I'm very curious to see how he looks in the preseason games, because I think he's going to get a lot of work, because I can't imagine they're going to want to play Aaron Rodgers much, if at all. And this is going to be a real opportunity for Zach Wilson to kind of get his game reps, and then in a worst case scenario, show that the Jets can rely on him if something happens to Aaron this season.
Any other standouts so far as training camp is really underway and getting this team ready? You're a week away from playing in the Hall of Fame game, like you just mentioned. Any other guys that have really caught your attention that we haven't been focusing on?
He actually got banged up today. It sounds like he's going to be okay, but Garrett Wilson has looked like an absolute star in camp. I would say he's like the number one guy that stood out to me. Sauce Gardner's looked as good as he did last year, but a guy that's flown on the radar, I would say, is Jermaine Johnson. He's a defensive end they drafted in the first round last year. Mm-hmm. He's bulked up. He looks way more explosive and athletic, and he seems like he's ready to kind of go off. So he's a guy that he kind of flew under the radar, because when you have the offensive and defensive rookie of the year, people forget they had a third first round pick also. That was like pretty solid for them too. So I think he's a guy that I think could have a really big year with the right opportunity.
What does Coach Saleh keep saying to everybody who comes around and wants to have these expectations of the Super Bowl, or just this expectation of being one of the best teams in the AFC? How does he temper the expectations of so many because of the emergence and acquiring Aaron Rodgers? What has been the sort of his, I guess, message to the team?
And he said something about this today, because pretty much every time we come out here, there's a lot more media that come that weren't there the day before. So he gets asked the expectations question a lot. And so I think today, I don't remember the exact quote, but it was something along the lines of, we're not trying to go 17-0, we're trying to kick butt every single day. So they're trying to focus on the day-to-day and not the bigger picture, while still like letting these guys talk about the idea of a Super Bowl, because they know that's the end goal in mind. But I think the main thing he's doing is just winning each day, instead of thinking about what's going to happen in Week 5 when they play the Broncos or whatever.
He's Zack Rosenblatt, Jets writer for the Athletic, co-host of the Can't Wait podcast. No one talking about the Jets defense. Right? Everything has been about Aaron Rodgers, and we're going to talk offense all year long, how many points they're scoring. But we can't forget that Robert Saleh is a defensive-minded head coach. How good can his defense be this year? Well, you mentioned Johnson, who's coming on to his second year. C.J. Mosley is a bona fide Pro Bowler every single year. How good can this Jets defense be that can help out the offense?
Yeah, last year they were a top 5 defense, and they did that without really forcing many turnovers, which, I think some experts would say that's a sign that they could regress the year later. But they brought back pretty much everybody from last year, give or take a couple of players. They added a first-round pick and Will McDonald to a group of already a deep, stable defensive ends. Carl Lawson is healthy. Quinnen Williams is coming off the best year of his career and just got paid. This is a very talented group. I think there's some spots that lack depth, but talent-wise, I think this can stack up with almost any defense in the league. And if they can fix that turnover thing where they weren't forcing many last year, I really do think this can be a top 5 or top 10 defense again. And if that's the case, then you don't really need the offense to be top 10. You just need them to be solid, because they were not solid for most of the year last year.
Yeah, they needed to find a way in a division now that's going to have, obviously, Tua and the Miami Dolphins. We look at now the Buffalo Bills. The way that you see this team right now, currently constructed, is this a team that is playing for a division title, or are they playing for the playoffs?
Yeah, I think they very much believe they're in the mix to compete for a division title. I think if everybody's healthy, then I would say they absolutely can do it. I'm skeptical they can catch the Bills just yet, and I think they really need to answer some questions they have on the offensive line, which it was a question coming into camp, and it really hasn't done anything to stop those questions. You know, a couple of guys are banged up, but I would say if the offensive line can improve from what it was last year, I do think this is a division contending type team.
Last one for you before I let you go here, Zach. We're going to see Hard Knocks, and when it's released, I believe in about a couple weeks, what should we be expecting, or what will surprise us when you think about the way that the Jets have handled so far this Hard Knocks, which is something that they said they didn't want to do, but they were forced to do it. What may surprise us when we see the way that this team is constructed?
The one thing I always go back to with that is I think Sauce Gardner. I think locally people know what Sauce Gardner is like and what he's about, but I don't know nationally they realize that how low key of a guy he is. You know, he's this flashy name, this flashy personality, but he's not a guy that goes out. He doesn't drink. He doesn't smoke. He goes home and he plays video games, and he has like a whole community of people who watch him play video games on Twitch, and that's just kind of like his life. He lives with his dog, and he has a very low key lifestyle. And I think you hear the name Sauce and you see the chain he wears and all that stuff, and maybe people think a little differently, and he's a trash talker and all that, but he's really just a normal kid who just loves football, and then he goes home and he just kind of relaxes and, you know, plays video games. And I think that's a part that the national audience is going to fall in love with him.
Oh, yeah. I'll leave you with this one, too. You forget about Quentin Williams at times, too. Like, he just signed a big contract. He's under contract for a while. His brother, Quincy Williams, as well. There's a lot of names on this Jets team that I feel like Hard Knocks is going to give us an inside look in some of the better personalities around the National Football League that you don't necessarily see because of the way the team has performed over the last couple of years.
Yeah, this is a locker room full of, you know, really fun, interesting guys. You know, Sauce Gardner, like I mentioned, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall. These are all guys' personalities. You know, you have a guy like Quentin that you mentioned. He's here with his brother Quincy.
Yeah.
DJ Reed has a really cool backstory. He's the other corner that kind of flies under the radar because of Sauce. And yeah, they have a lot of talent in that building and a lot of personalities. It's going to be a fun group to watch on that show.
You can follow him on Twitter at Zack Blatt. He's a Jets writer for The Atheltic, co-host of the Can't Wait podcast. He'll be covering the Hall of Fame game in 1 week as the Jets take on the Cleveland Browns. Zach, man, appreciate the time. The most popular man in the NFL covering the Jets. Appreciate it, Zach.
Thanks, man.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.